Hi lads. So thanks to everyone who came to the workshop the other night. Like we spoke about, I'm going to break that workshop down into kind of chunks now, so you can reference any of the individual subjects at any time. So this small presentation here is just going to be about the skill set side of it. The whole first workshop was about the understanding side, the understanding the mind. There's obviously that first Loom video is in our WhatsApp group. You can look back over that anytime you want. It's obviously a slight bit longer. It's nearly half an hour long, but you kind of have to go through all of it to really understand how our mind is working and get a really, really good handle on that, because the skill set won't work unless our mindset is right, So to crack on here, we spoke about last night, about those feelings you have before matches or during matches, kind of anxiety, nerves, all that kind of stuff. And we spoke about the physiological side of it. The feelings of anxiety are the exact same as the feelings of excitement. So if you're anxious or nervous, you might be sweaty, butterflies in the stomach, shakes, worried, all that kind of stuff. But similarly enough, if you were standing to go on a really big roller coaster, or if you remember back to when you were small, standing outside a sitting room on Christmas morning waiting to go in to see what Santa brought you probably had similar feelings. So excitement and nervousness and anxiety, you can kind of, it just depends which way you're going to frame it, but we kind of spoke about that. It's a good way for us to actually maybe take away those words and use the word intensity. So we're going to have an intensity scale for us to check in to see where we are on this scale. And you can do this any day of the week, before training, at work, anywhere. If you're checking in with yourself, if you feel you're in a state of red or anything, you can check in to see where am I right now. We said before, with the blue brain system, if you ask yourself a logical question, do I want to feel this way? Or if you ask yourself, where am I on the scale? You will stop that negative spiral of thinking or that kind of those redhead behaviors. Obviously I sent out the Google Forms there over the last day or so, just to try and get fellas triggers and their reactions and stuff. And I was a bit overwhelmed, to be honest with you. The response was absolutely fantastic. So many fellas are after getting back, and some really honest, great answers with it and stuff. So yeah, look, by labeling the intensity, we can bring it out an awareness, because like I said to you before, if we're aware of anything at all in life, we can do something about it. But if we're kind of carrying on not aware of where we are with stuff, you won't even know what's going on. And if I'm talking of matches in sport, seconds and minutes could be passing by when you're in a mental state where you don't want to be, and we spoke about, if that means you're inside in the corner and there's 3 balls come in and you're not present and you're not focused, that could be 3 scores gone for the team. Similarly, if you're playing the full back line or half backs or wherever, that could be the difference of your man getting through for a goal or a couple of points or something, So obviously being up at 9 or 10, that's the extreme version. That's when you're up in a state of redhead, you're over aroused, you're highly emotional, negative spiral of thoughts, tunnel vision, your body's kind of shutting down a bit, you're rushing decision, giving away a careless freeze, paranoid, wondering what people are, you're overthinking stuff, wondering what are people saying about you in the sideline, what are people saying about you watching the match. A lot of people came back in the form as well. They could identify with the what I call the FOPO, fear of other people's opinions. It's a huge thing, not just in sport, people's perception of what they think other people think of them, but I said this to people before, that feelings aren't facts. It's important to remember that, because just because you feel that other people are looking at you might feel that people saw you make mistakes or talk about mistakes, that doesn't mean it's true. It's very important to always remember that the feelings aren't facts. So that's why, by checking in with yourself to see where this is, it will start to bring you down towards the blue zone a bit more. Okay, obviously if you're down at the grey zone, then like you can see there briefly, that's when you're under aroused, lethargic, distracted. You just can't get into the flow of the match no matter what you do. We spoke about that at the workshop. I won't talk about that here now, but it's something that we will work on in training, and maybe before matches when we come back out of half time, to try and, especially at half time, I feel sometimes it's important when you go in and you reassess at half time to how things are going. You want to go back in with the right state of intensity, I suppose, into the second half, especially championship matches. But we identified that we want to have the right mix of blue and red, I think, as a team, for us to perform at our best, because especially even in the forms that came back, when we play well together as a team and are driving each other on, I think we get really good performances. So we're going to call being at a level 8 as our purple zone. That's the mix of red and blue. that's what we're going to call it our championship level, okay? That's the right mix of the blue, calmness, the logical side of blue, where we're thinking clearly, you know, we're reset, we're functioning properly, but we've got the kind of right kind of fire and the right amount of emotion from red, you know? There's nothing wrong with being emotional and having emotions, but it's but we need to be in control of the emotions, you know? And again, it's essential that we're always responding rather than reacting, you know? So if you go into a state of red, like all these different triggers, you know, the management are shouting at you, your teammates are shouting at you, you make a mistake, you give away a score, you put a shot wide and stuff, you know, like we'll naturally probably react in our minds. We might shout back, or we might fight, flight, freeze, all that kind of stuff. But the more we work on this, we will decide that we will respond rather than react, you know? And we spoke about, like, you know, Carl mentioned it, even our video stuff, you know, why can't we be the ones applying the pressure, you know? And the more we learn about this stuff and buy into it as a team, and so far I've been really impressed with all, like I said, all the forums that came back, there seems to be a huge appetite to actually crack on and do this as a team, and to have this stuff in all set out and lined up properly for going into our games. You know, that we will be the ones, we will meet pressure with even more pressure. We will apply the pressure, you know, and like, we won't always have it our own way in matches, you know, but when other teams get a run on us or there's a purple patch, we'll ride out that storm. We'll be highly flexible. We will bend, but we won't break. We make a commitment that we will be flexible. We can bend with the pressure, but we won't break. But once we get a run, then we will hammer the hammer and go at teams and start to put them away, you know. So to get into the skill side of it quickly, the reset function to get back, if you're in a state of red and you want to get yourself back to blue, you know, it's what we call step back, step up, step in, okay? This is a skill no different to practicing your striking, no difference to going to the gym, doing all the running we do at training, the sprint work, speed work. The more we practice this, the stronger it's going to get, okay? And that's just to kind of visualize what it's going. So when there's an event or a trigger happens, again, you use this, the analogy of you drop a ball or you miss a ball, okay? That's the event. That's the trigger that's going to trigger off your redhead. That's your survival brain going, thinking there's a threat, even though there's no, we went over this dangerous lines or scary stuff around. Your brain is going to react the same way. It's going to perceive that as a threat to your emotional system. And then you're going to have that reaction or respond. But we're going to learn by practicing this stuff individually that when something happens, because you've all identified what your stuff is in the form so far, that the first thing we're going to do is you're going to step back, okay? And by stepping back, it's asking yourself the question, oh, being aware, where am I on the intensity scale? You first have to notice that your focus has been hijacked. You know, I'm hoping at this stage that kind of day to day, week to week now, at work, at training, everything, you're starting to notice little things that might send you over to a state of redhead, you know, whether it's your wife, your partner, your girlfriend, your boss, you know, your teammates, anything that are triggering you off, you know, and you're going, fucking hell, that really annoyed me there, I'm reacted this way. You're starting to notice when you're going out of blue and into red, and that you're moving around that scale, okay? But the first skill, like I said, step back. You have to create an immediate distance from the emotional reaction to what happened. So you're asking yourself, where am I on the intensity scale? And if your answer is at 9 or 10, or if you say I'm in a state of red here, you've done the first step by actually asking your blue brain the question, and you said, right, I'm aware I'm in a 9 or 10. By stepping back, you'll get composure, and it will allow your thinking blue brain to re-engage. So now you get to decide what happens next, okay? So the phase 2 part, that's the step up part, where we're going to make a decision to do something, you know, and there's different words and different phrases, or mental reset cues they're called, you know. So we spoke about this, you know, I love this one personally, you know, WIN, win, and it stands for what's important now. You know, it's like asking yourself, do I want to feel this way? I feel in a match. If you ask yourself what's important now, it will really focus you on the present, not about the event or trigger that happened a minute, 5 minutes ago, however long ago, not about the future. You know, we spoke about our brains are time traveling sometimes when the pressure's on. We're time traveling forward, wondering we're going to lose the match, the scoreboard, blah, blah, blah. Or we're going backwards where we're worrying about the mistakes. You need to get right back focused for the next ball that's going to come. Okay? What's important now? It will interrupt the emotional hijack. It stops a negative spiral, because when you're asking yourself that question, instead of the negative spiral of going around, I missed the ball, blah, 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 my man scored, blah, blah, blah. Then by asking yourself this, while you're thinking about what's important now, all of a sudden you're not thinking about the mistake. You're creating a distance away from it. It refocuses your attention on your goal individually and on our team goal. It will force us from a shift from reacting over to responding. Okay? A And look, there's other words there's other little symbols you can have too. People can write these on their bands, or some people will put a bandage around their wrist, the white tape, and you might write it, or you might not need to write it. It might just be something that you'll have in your head, like fish, fuck it, shit happens, WTB, what's the plan? But I find win's a good one. What's important now for refocusing. And it's something that dawned on me as well with all the forms that came in. As a team, we always will shout at fellas, and I do it an awful lot myself. If I see a friend or one of the teammates make a mistake, we'll say next ball, and it's really well intentioned, and it's a really good thing to say. But I suppose it's important to recognise that, if I shout next ball at someone who's in a state of redhead emotionally, and they go, okay, next ball, but unless they steady up their emotions, you're not going to re-engage with the match with the right frame of mind, So the second part of phase 2, after stepping back, so first thing, you're aware where you are. The second thing is you're asking yourself what's important now. Along with what's important now, you have to have a physical reset action. Okay, this can be anything. I'm only giving some ideas here. Sometimes the mind alone cannot fix the mind. You have to bring the body into it. You need something physical, to snap you back to reality, to re-anchor yourself. Okay. A really simple one to do is obviously your breathing, your box breathing. You can take 3 big deep breaths. You can use the box breathing system, 4 seconds in, hold for 4 seconds, out for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, or keep it really simple. Just take 3 really big deep breaths. No one's going to notice you're doing that. While you're asking yourself that, take your deep breaths, into your belly if you can, because the vagus nerve is down by your belly, that will steady down your heart rate and stuff like that. Other examples, curling your toes in your boots, squeezing your wrist, slapping the hurley off your leg. It could be absolutely anything, but find something that works for you for your phase 2, for your step up action. And then the third thing then, so just go back to the graph quickly. The event or trigger happens, you step back and you find awareness about where I am on the scale. You step up by doing your actions. So you take your breaths or your physical action, you ask yourself your question to focus yourself again. But the most important part of all this is step 3. You re-engage with the match straight away, or you re-engage with the training situation straight away. Or if you're at work and you do it straight away, or someone's after irritating you or something's happened. And all this needs to be done fast now, because you don't have fucking minutes to do all this. And this needs to be all done in the space of, 10, 15, 20 seconds job, So, if you're at home and your missus is pissing you off and she says something that really irritates you, rather than reacting, you might kind of take a deep breath and kind of pinch your wrist very subtly, and then you'll re-engage with the conversation in the right manner, But for us in the match, we're going to step back in with impact, But most important thing we spoke about are using our focus as a flashlight. When you step back in, you put your flashlight on the stuff that we're really good at: work rate, our tackling intensity, our positioning, and our ability to reset as a team. You can't sit on the fence with all this kind of stuff. You have to re-engage with the game fast. You have to make your decision, And I said this the other night, we'll do this, and that doesn't mean that you'll reset and then all of a sudden everything's rosy again, that you just plow on and have a great game. You could make the mistake. So use an example, you could go through on goal, put the ball wide. That's a negative cycle going around your head. You do your reset action here. You reset, steady yourself again. But look, the harsh reality is if you're playing the full forward or something, there might not be another ball come in for a couple of minutes. So what will invariably happen, at the start for us when we're learning to do all this kind of stuff, is that negative thought will probably come back into your head again. So you'll have to redo the reset action, and you might need to refocus and refocus and refocus until the ball comes back in again. It's probably more prevalent for fellas at the extremities of the pitch, in the full back and the full forward line, where there's a bit more less time on the ball and less possession. Sometimes, around the middle third, you probably need to be faster at doing the resetting and stuff, And then once you've done all that, you reappraise. So if you checked in before all this and you were at a 9 or a 10 in the intensity scale, once you've done your reset action, you feel there's been a slight change, reappraise it, right, where am I on the scale now? And you should be going down. You might only go from a 9 down to an 8 or to a 7, but in your mind, that's a win for you. Say, right, I'm after reappraising here, and I've gone back down in the scale, So look, that's it in terms of the reset stuff. You put it down there. Are you in red or blue? Decide, do. You have to make up your mind about where you are. Thanks again to everyone who sent in the forms. I've been on to loads of fellas individually with the various bits and pieces. We'll keep working away around this stuff. I'll keep working away around the background with individual stuff. I'll be putting together a few other bits and pieces in the meantime, and I'll do another small video over the next few days, maybe on the focus and confidence side again. Okay, nice one.